We're good. All right, so we're in chapter 8 tonight. Just a quick reminder and announcement. There's no Bible study the next 2 Tuesdays. So the 23rd and the 30th. The 23rd, we have a family Christmas thing going on, and then the 30th. The 29th through the 30th is the youth lock-in. And I have to be a part of it this year because we have girls now for the first time in youth group in like 8 years. So I gotta be here. Pray for me. I haven't had an all-nighter in a very long time.
Does Zeke and Asa get all-nighter too?
No, they go to grandma's. I don't think I can handle that. That wouldn't be well for anybody.
And then the next day.
Oh, man. That sounds awful. Okay, so to recap, specifically chapter 7, we're seeing a lot of ups and downs in Israel. It started with, remember we're coming off the time of the Judges where it said everyone just did what was right in their own eyes. Then God brought Samuel into the picture, specifically because the priesthood was very corrupt. And so now Samuel is the one who's this spiritual leader of Israel. He is helping to get Israel back on track within the covenant that they have with God, removing the Baals and the Ashtoreths and following God, following his commandments. We saw that Israel made a really poor choice when they tried to take the ark into battle, using it like a magical, something, relic of some sort. And it was a very dishonoring thing to God. And so God allowed it to be captured. And we saw that whole thing play out. And in chapter 7, we see that Israel is repentant. They're instead of turning to their own strengths for deliverance from the Philistines, they're actually turning to God. And they're saying to Samuel, cry out to the Lord for us, pray for us, because we're asking God for deliverance from the Philistines. And God did give them that deliverance from the Philistines who came up against them at that time. So that was a great thing. But we're going to see in chapter 8 that Israel has another bad moment. So we can go ahead in chapter 8 here. Let's read just the first 5 verses here, and I'll go ahead and read. And it came about when Samuel was old that he appointed his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abijah, and they were judging in Beersheba. His sons, however, did not walk in his ways, but turned aside after dishonest gain, and took bribes and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said to him, behold, you have grown old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king for us to judge us like all the nations. Okay, something to note here, and something to keep in mind as we progress through 1 Samuel is that we don't know what kind of time gaps happen between chapters. A lot of times we like to read it one chapter to the next is a very short period of time. It's not always like that. It doesn't tell us how much time. It does say, now Samuel's old. And then it tells us that as time went on, they realized that his sons, whom he appointed as judges after him, were not going to be like their father. So clearly time lapses are taking place. We just don't know what that looks like. So it's something to keep in mind when you're reading that. It's not always, next day, that kind of thing. So, but we're seeing overall the humility and repentance of chapter 7 is now contrasted with distrust and manipulation again here in chapter 8. Israel had turned back to God. They were trusting in him for the protection from their enemies in chapter 7. And then they turn around in chapter 8 and they make the same error that they do, if you noticed in chapter 4, when they decided to take the ark into battle, they were trying to control the outcome of the battle. And it's kind of like they're falling back on that same old thing again here in chapter 8. They weren't happy with what was happening with the spiritual leadership in Israel. I understand that, having corrupt leadership. I understand that. But instead of turning to God, they were saying, we're going to appoint someone for ourselves now because we're going to be in charge and we're going to make sure that everything turns out exactly the way we want it to. And that's their attitude here. So instead of chapter 4 was kind of more of a superstitious approach to controlling God. If we take the magic box in the battle, then he has to honor and give us victory and that kind of thing. Here it's kind of more of a political approach because they give their reason in verse 5, appoint us a king to judge us like all the nations. So they've been keeping their eye on the rest of the world and comparing themselves. Now, remember, God, two things here. First of all, God has always said that he will be their king. He has always made that very clear in many ways. He is the one that brought them out of Egypt, out of slavery. He is the one that made them into a nation, into a people group. He is the one that gave them laws. He is the one, if you remember in Exodus, remember with the whole people of Israel camped out in the wilderness, where was the tabernacle at? Nobody?
It was with them.
It was with them, but where in the camp?
Was it in the middle?
It was in the middle. And that was the place reserved for a king. Whenever a king was out encamped, like with his army or something like that, the king was at the center. And that's where the tabernacle was, the house of God. That's where the king resides. He's the one that has been leading them and providing for them. And so he has made it very, very clear that he is their true king. He's also made it very clear that Israel's to be different from the nations. He called them out of the nations. He called Abraham out. He made him and his people, his descendants, to be set apart, to be holy, to be the Lord's people. So for Israel to be saying this, and this is their reason, give us a king because we want to be like the rest of the nations, that's like a twofold dishonoring to the Lord, really. So what's at the heart of this demand where they say, give us a king to judge us like the rest of the nations? What's at the heart of this command?
Are you saying that they didn't want God to be their judge or king?
Yeah, and why?
Well, when I read that, I thought it sounded like, we want what everybody else has.
Yeah.
You know, they've got it, we want it, which, and they say that twice in there,
They do.
yeah.
You're right.
But they were unhappy with Samuel's sons, for one thing.
They were. Yeah.
Did they want somebody that they could visually see?
Yes. I think that's a big part of it. And why so?
They can believe, but if you can't see it, it's hard to believe
Yeah.
and know that that person is there.
Right.
with them.
It's a matter of trust. They're saying we only trust what we can see and touch and maybe even have a bit of control over. And it's the same thing with taking the ark into the battle. They wanted that control over the outcome of the battle, and so they did a physical thing. They trusted in a physical thing.
I was thinking of the ark being there as more of a weapon of fear against the enemies, the power of it.
That did play a part in it at first. The Philistines were afraid at first when they found out, but they still rallied themselves. Yeah.
Maybe they wanted the other countries to see that there was a physical king
Yes.
as opposed to.
Yes. Yeah. We look bad over here because we don't
Yeah.
we don't have some great king like everybody else to, you know, to look upon, and yes.
And they also look bad because they weren't following God all the way.
Yes.
Or bad, they had seasons, and so then
Yes.
they look bad when they're not following him.
Yep.
So then, in their minds, if they had an actual king.
Yeah, exactly. They're meant to reflect God's character, and instead, they're doing a very poor job of that. And so they're saying, listen, we don't want to deal with all this nonsense. It's so different from everybody else is doing. Never mind the fact that other nations had probably way more crime than Israel ever had a ton of prostitution and just child sacrifice, things like that. Never mind that. Look at how prosperous they are. Look at great nations they are.
They're also subjecting themselves to a really bad king.
Yes.
Like somebody that could be mean to them or whatever it is.
Right.
And God's always, they might not like it, but he's always been fair, and
I think that hits it right there on the nail, because this is a big moment of not trusting God's character as being trustworthy and true and faithful and good. They are not trusting that at all. And God has proven to them all along that he truly is trustworthy. Yeah. Let's see. Let's keep reading. Verses 6 to 9. But the thing was displeasing in the sight of Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." And Samuel prayed to the Lord. The Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people in regard to all that they say to you. For they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them. Like all the deeds which they have done since the day that I brought them up from Egypt, even to this day, and that they have forsaken me and served other gods, so they are doing to you also. Now then, listen to their voice. However, you shall solemnly warn them and tell them of the procedure of the king who will reign over them." So Samuel's clearly upset about this request, but God's not surprised at all. In fact, Moses actually discussed this in Deuteronomy 17. We can turn there really quick. Deuteronomy 17. This is when Moses is kind of like going over a lot of things as like it's his last speeches to Israel before he's done. And a lot of it is just, don't forget this, make sure you keep this, make sure you know, that kind of thing. But Deuteronomy 17, verses 14 to 20, he mentions that having a king. So in verse 14, "When you enter the land which the Lord your God gives you, and you possess it and live in it, and you say, 'I will set a king over me, like all the nations who are around me,' you shall surely set a king over you, whom the Lord your God chooses. One from among your countrymen you shall set as king over yourselves. You may not put a foreigner over yourselves, who is not your countryman. Moreover, he shall not multiply horses for himself, nor shall he cause the people to return to Egypt to multiply horses, since the Lord has said to you, you shall never again return that way. He shall not multiply wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away, nor shall he greatly increase silver and gold for himself. Now it shall come about, when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself a copy of this law on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priests. It shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, by carefully observing all the words of this law and these statutes, that his heart may not be lifted up above his countrymen, and that he may not turn aside from the commandment to the right or to the left, so that he and his sons may continue long in his kingdom in the midst of Israel." So I think that's really interesting that Moses, before the people had even entered the promised land and conquered it, he's already prophetically almost speaking about Israel, you're gonna ask for a king someday. And so when that happens, because the day will come, this is the way to go about it. And if you notice that a lot of the things that he mentions, we see a lot of kings failing in. Solomon and his many wives who turned his heart away. I noticed, let's see, where it said, where it talked about that this king will have a copy of the Word's law, that he can be meditating on it. That reminds me of David. Day and night I meditate on your law, you know. That's really interesting to me because nobody else really had a copy of the law. It was for the priests, and you know, it was within the tabernacle, then later the temple, then later the synagogues. Anyone who was a Levite really had access to it, but nobody else really had access to it. So for the king to be the one that has his own copy of it, that says a lot. No.
Okay, like I know the difference between the judges and the king, but like, what is the difference? Because it seems it's God appointed judges to lead them too.
Mm-hmm.
And they had good and bad judges. Like, what is the difference?
Judges were like people who God raised up to, is it cold in here? Is everybody cold in here? Yeah, I'm gonna turn it up a bit. Cause I was too, but that was just me, 'cause I'm cold. Hey, you can't get mad at me if you get roasted out now, okay?
Well, I'll go to sleep.
Okay, judges were people that God raised up at certain times. But then it wasn't a forever position.
So they would have a judge for a time and then nobody for a time.
Right, yes,
Okay.
he would raise up and then there would be, you know, nobody, and that kind of thing. So, like, it was sporadic through, I don't know, I think Judges was like around 400 years or something like that. It was sporadic. A king's gonna be like, it'll be a political thing too. There'll be a king set up, and then like a kingdom will just continue back to that point. Yeah. Because otherwise they would just say, we want a different judge. But at this point, they're like, we're done with judges. We're done with the priests. We're done with the judges. We're not turning to any of those now. We want a king. A king's that's what's gonna do it. Yeah. Sure will. Yeah. Okay. Notice what God says to Samuel, where he says, "Don't worry, Samuel. It's not you. It's me." That's kind of his answer. They haven't just rejected you, even though they say we're not happy with your sons. They're rejecting God. That's at the heart behind it, and God saw through to the heart of it. They're rejecting him as king over Israel. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I had wondered if a lot of pastors would identify with that. That when people in the congregation leave or don't agree, that they think, oh, they don't like me, I've done something. When it's most likely just they don't like what God's word said, and the pastor was the mouthpiece.
Yeah, you're right. That I'm sure that does happen. So they got something in common with Samuel there. I keep coming back to this idea that the heart of the issue here is they don't really trust God, and they want a measure of control over the outcome of them as a people, as a nation. That's what they're trying to do here. Because they haven't outright, how do I put this? They're rejecting God as king, but they're not being like, we're done with this covenant, God. We're gonna go turn to our Baals, we're gonna, like that kind of thing. So it's almost like they're saying, like, yeah, we're still in a covenant with God, but we want a king because we want him to be like this. We want him to be the one that's going to deliver us from the Philistines. We want security. We want prosperity. And they think that a king is going to be the thing that is going to deliver that, to guarantee that.
It seems rather foolish though.
It
Because
does.
most kings are only out for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Especially their neighbors that they wanted to be like.
Right.
No one controls the king.
No.
So that's just twisted thinking to me.
Isn't that
They
funny?
would actually think, oh, we'll get a king and we'll tell him, this is how it's gonna be.
Right.
Even though Samuel tells him as we get into it,
Yeah.
that's not how it's gonna be.
No.
Didn't it say somewhere in here, as I was reading, that they wanted a leader to lead them into battle?
Mm-hmm.
That they could follow the king into battle?
Yes.
Rather than,
Yes. A lot of this is because of the Philistines being such an oppression to them at this time. So their main concern is that they want deliverance from their enemies, they want security, they want prosperity. Those are their main things that they have.
Listen to God, you'll get delivered.
Right. Crazy, I know.
But then I just keep thinking about myself, and like, I mean, I reject God, and I want what the world has, and I mean, it's like looking at myself.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because one of the commentaries I was reading said, chapter 8 is like looking into a mirror. It reveals Israel's heart and it reveals our hearts. We're just like this. We are ashamed to be different from the world sometimes. We want things, and we want it the way we want it, and we want a measure of control in the way we get it. We like to manipulate in ways. You know, how can if I do so much service for the church, then surely that earns me something, right? I mean, that sounds a little silly, but I think we all have a measure of that in some way. Yeah. What are ways that we try to control our relationship with God?
Well, I like to pray and tell God how I think he ought to do stuff.
Yep.
Only if you agree.
Yeah.
Here's my suggestion.
Yeah. Let me help you out. I got it all planned. All you gotta do is sign off on
It
it.
works out perfectly here.
we do it exactly this way. We're trying to come up with other ways to do things, like, if I'm waiting for something, then, okay, what if I do this instead? Will that work?
Right.
Will that give me what I want?
Yes.
Or how about this?
Yes. The time, we don't like God's timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think something's happening.
Or treating things almost like a self-help style. If I do the right steps, then I want to achieve this outcome. If I do the right steps, then I will achieve this outcome. God never said that that's how that works. That's why there's so many books out there. Yeah. And so I think Israel is doing the same thing here. And I think you hit it right on the head, Vicki, about they want something that they can touch and see, feel, and it feels like they have a measure of control over it. When in reality, like you said, Marilee, they're gonna be the ones that end up controlled by the very thing they thought they could control. Little twist of fate there. So, okay, so let's look at verse 9. God clearly disapproves of Israel requesting a king because he's the one that's supposed to be the king. So why is he allowing it then? Why is he going, listen to the people?
Because sometimes he just allows that so that you
Yeah.
can see.
You can see the difference, what it looks like when you choose for yourself.
Yep.
Versus when he has led you.
Yes.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes he allows that in our life.
Exactly. Exactly.
Whine long enough, okay, this is
Yep.
what it looks like.
Yep, that's exactly it. And I know we've seen that a couple of times in Israel's history already, and we're going to continue to see it in Psalm 106. Psalm 106 is a wonderful psalm. It talks a lot about Israel's history with God. And so part of the verses here, 13 through 15, says, this is describing their time wandering in the wilderness. It says, they quickly forgot his works. They did not wait for his counsel, but craved intensely in the wilderness and tempted God in the desert. And so he gave them their request and sent a wasting disease among them. So if you remember that, they were the ones, I think this was the first generation of Israel, and they were wandering in the desert, and they were like, we should have gone back to Egypt. Think of all the wonderful foods. Do you guys remember the fresh cucumbers they had there? You know, they were just, they were ready to go back to slavery because of some food. And God said, fine, you're gonna be like this. And I can't remember why he sent them. I think it was maybe meat or something like that. And they ended up getting really sick over it as a result. And so that's exactly it. You convince yourself, I can't live without this. This is what it's going to take for me to be satisfied. And God's saying either no, or not yet, or something like that. And we don't realize that that's a good answer. We think that's a bad answer. We don't like that answer. And finally, God just says, fine, go ahead. You can have what you want, and it's not going to be as good as you think it's going to be. Either it doesn't satisfy at all, or it's actually truly harmful for you, like in Israel's case here. And so sometimes those no's or the silence or the waits, those answers are actually mercies to us. Reading this and studying this has really changed the way that I view unanswered prayers. And I actually realized I don't actually like to call them unanswered prayers because I think that they're all answers. Some of them I just don't like. But it's a good reminder for us that God doesn't always say yes to everything that we think he should say yes to, and there is a very good reason for those things. And even the silences, he has good things that he is doing.
Sometimes it just takes years to know that that's
Yes.
a good thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We're not in on the secret. Yeah, that's exactly it. The other thing I wanted to mention, when I was reading that verse in Psalms, where it says they craved intensely in the wilderness, that word craved, I read this in my commentary. It says that sort of passion or craving where you crave things and they feel like you can't be happy or secure without them. That kind of passion or craving is what the Bible calls epithumia, and it's a desire that has taken on so much weight that it drives everything about a person. It is in 1 John 2:16 and 17, where it talks about the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That word lust, that is the epithumia. It is the cravings that control, like in Romans 1:24, where it says, therefore God gave them over in the lusts of their heart to impurity, so that their bodies would be dishonored among them. It's that same thing. God just gave them over to their desires. And it was harmful to them, but he was trying to hold that back from them. But we don't realize it. So God gives Israel their king, and he tells Samuel to warn them of all the devastating consequences, because this is really an idolatrous request here. They're trusting in something other than God. So it's really, truly an idolatrous request. So let's read 10 through 18. So Samuel spoke all the words of the Lord to the people who had asked of him a king. And he said, "This will be the procedure of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and place them for himself in his chariots and among his horsemen, and they will run before his chariots. He will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and of 50s, and some to do his plowing and to reap his harvest and to make his weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will also take your daughters for perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and of your vineyards and of your olive groves and give them to his servants. And he will take a tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give to his officers and to his servants. He will also take your male servants and your female servants and your best young men and your donkeys and use them for his work. And he will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his servants. Then you will cry out in that day because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day." Nevertheless, the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel, and they said, "No, but there shall be a king over us, so that we may all be like the nations, that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles." Now after Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the Lord's hearing. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to their voice and appoint them a king." And so Samuel said to the men of Israel, "Go every man to his city." I know I was just going to do to 18, but I kept going, sorry. Okay, in those first 18 verses, 10 through 18, what's the dominant word that you see over and over again? Take. Yeah, that's exactly it. The dominant word is take. The king is going to take the best of everything. Your sons, your daughters, your livestock, your vineyards, your et cetera, the best of your years, everything. The king is going to take. They wanted a king to guarantee them prosperity and security, but a king was actually going to take those things from them, actually. And the king that they thought that they could control for their own gain ends up controlling them for his own gain. And it reminds me, who has seen Aladdin?
Long time ago.
Yeah. Okay, come on.
The cartoon, you mean?
Yeah.
The animated, the Disney princess.
Yeah. So in the movie, Jafar, all he wants is to be sultan. He wants to be ruler of Arabia. And at the end of the movie, he ends up in control of the lamp with the genie. And, his first wish is to make himself sultan. And he does that. By his last wish, though, he realizes the genie is the one that has all the power. He's the one that gave him, his wishes. So he asks to be a genie himself. And he transforms into this genie, and he's like, "I've got all this cosmic power in my hands." But then the shackles go on. He's attached to that lamp, and he goes right in. Remember, Aladdin says, "Itty bitty living space." The thing that he thought was going to give him everything he wanted ends up being a slave to it. Even if in 1,000 years somebody did finally rub that lamp, he is a servant to whoever that is. That's his master. He is a slave to the very thing that he thought was going to give him everything he wants. And that's exactly what it made me think of. So in verses 19 to 22, Samuel, he tells the people everything. And if you remember, back in chapter 3, it told us that Samuel was speaking the word of the Lord, and his words didn't fall to the ground, or they were proved true. And so it was proved that Samuel's words were heeded as God's words. And yet, in this moment, Israel refuses to listen. They will not allow Samuel's wise words to sway them from their purpose, from their mission here. And so, while Israel refuses to listen to Samuel's voice, God instructs Samuel to listen to theirs. He says, listen to their voice and give them what they want. And so Israel hears God's wisdom. That is God's wisdom laid out right there as a warning. And they don't submit to it at all. And so we see the difference here. This is an example, the difference between having the truth and loving the truth. And when you love the truth and the truth giver, then there's obedience, there is obeying. And Israel is not interested in that at this point in time. So, any thoughts on chapter 8 here? Okay, we can move into chapter 9 since we have some time. Chapter 9, we are introduced to Saul, who is going to be Israel's first king. And so let's just read I don't know. Let's see, where do we want to go to? I'll read the first 14 verses here. Now there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zerer, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah, the son of a Benjamite, a mighty man of valor. And he had a son whose name was Saul, a choice and handsome man, and there was not a more handsome person than he among the sons of Israel. From his shoulders and up he was taller than any of the people. Now the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, were lost, and so Kish said to his son Saul, "Take now with you one of the servants, and arise, go search for the donkeys." And he passed through the hill country of Ephraim, and passed through the land of Shelishah, but they did not find them. And then they passed through the lands of Shalim, but they were not there. Then he passed through the land of the Benjamites, but they did not find them. When they came to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant who was with him, "Come and let us return, or else my father will cease to be concerned about the donkeys and will become anxious for us." And he said to him, "Behold, now there is a man of God in this city, and the man is held in honor. All that he says surely comes true. Now let us go there. Perhaps he can tell us about our journey on which we have set out." Then Saul said to his servant, "But behold, if we go, what shall we bring the man? For the bread is gone from our sack, and there is no present to bring to the man of God. What do we have?" The servant answered Saul again and said, "Behold, I have in my hand a fourth of a shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God, and he will tell us our way." And formerly in Israel, when a man went to inquire of God, he used to say, "Come and let us go to the seer," for he who is called a prophet now was formerly called a seer. And then Saul said to his servant, "Well said, come, let us go." So they went to the city where the man of God was. And as they went up to the slope of the city, they found young women going out to draw water, and said to them, "Is the seer here?" And they answered them and said, "He is. See, he is ahead of you. Hurry now, for he has come into the city today, for the people have a sacrifice on the high place today. And as soon as you enter the city, you will find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. And now therefore go up, for you will find him at once." So they went up to the city, and as they came into the city, behold, Samuel was coming out toward them to go up to the high place. Okay, so first we are introduced to Kish, and he has this whole pedigree of names in his family that tells us that he's a well-known man, he's an important man, and most likely a wealthy man as well. And then we are introduced to Saul, his son, and his pedigree is that he is handsome. That's all it talks about, how handsome he is and how tall he is. Notice what the author does not mention. He doesn't say anything about Saul being a man after God's heart. He doesn't say anything about that. I'm not saying that that's not the case. I don't know what Saul's heart was like, but typically that's a mention. Compare this description of the first king of Israel to David, the second king of Israel. We find out that David is small in stature. He is not of a wealthy family at all. He doesn't really have anything about him that's very important, image-wise, or even just social, expectations wise. But it does say that he's a man after God's own heart. And so, two totally different descriptions there. The first thing that we are really introduced to, and this continues really to the whole chapter, but the first thing that we're really introduced to is God's providence. God's way of providing for the needs of his people, and he does it in wonderful, strange, mysterious, unguessable ways. And we see that he rules and he sustains his people through the most common things in our lives. And so Saul's story begins exactly like that, with common, mundane things happening. He had no idea what was truly going on, but all he knew is the donkeys were lost. Anybody have kids or grandkids who made them watch Encanto a million times? No.
I've watched it a million times.
By yourself?
Maybe not a million.
Do you remember? The donkeys
Yes.
are brown. Yes, that one. Tiny blip in the movie, but it's forever in my brain.
Yeah.
What? My kids watch a lot of movies, I guess.
We need a list of movies to go on.
We're a different generation, I
Yeah,
bet.
that's right. Generation.
They're just like Gunsmoke, Marsha. You'll love them.
Pretty much the same.
Nothing beats
Pretty much
that.
the same. No, nothing like Gunsmoke, sorry. But, okay, we have this ordinary chain of events that brings Saul to Samuel. First, the donkeys get loose. Then Saul and a servant go searching for them. And that is a true journey. That's not just like, hey, go check the back, I'll go check the front. That's not that. It is a journey, multi-day journey through the lands of Ephraim and Benjamin. They made like a circle like this, basically. They still can't find those dang donkeys. And then ending up in the land of Zuph, which is very close to Ramah, which is where, what's his face? Samuel is. And so that's when they decide to abandon their searches, right when they are very, very close to Samuel. And then the next ordinary thing, the simple suggestion of the servant is not even named. And he just goes, hey, I heard of a local who knows things, a seer. Let's just go see what he's got. And the fact that he even had something of payment with him as well. Ordinary, but we see them probably as extraordinary because we're in on the secret of what's happening here. I thought when I was reading this, I thought, what a strange question to go see a seer for. Like, mostly people are going to prophets and seers being like, I don't know, am I gonna make it rich? Or I don't know, something like that, right? That would be like the question. But hey, have you seen my donkeys? Is the question for the man of God. I just thought that was hilarious. Okay, we come to verse 15. Sorry, any thoughts before we go forward? Okay, we can move forward then. Verses 15 to 17. I'll read real quick. Now, a day before Saul's coming, the Lord had revealed this to Samuel, saying, about this time tomorrow, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin, and you shall anoint him to be prince over my people Israel, and he will deliver my people from the hand of the Philistines. For I have regarded my people, because their cry has come to me. And when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said to him, behold, the man of whom I spoke to you, this one shall rule over my people. Okay, so these verses are almost like an intrusion to our story. The writer splices it in, almost like this missing piece of the story that you would never know if you skipped from verse 14 to 18. It would just continue on like normal. But the writer splices these few verses in for an important reason, because it gives us a clue into what's going on. We see the secret of what God is doing. That the day before Samuel met Saul, he received a word from God, and that God was going to tell Samuel, I'm going to send you a man. Be prepared. He's coming in a few days. And so this This isn't just a series of unfortunate events for Saul with the whole donkey debacle. This isn't just a coincidence. This is all God's doing. And now we are in on the secret, and we get to see the will and the hand of God that's been working behind the scenes here and through all of the ordinary events that leads Saul along the path of God's choosing. This is God's providence at work. We don't get to see behind the scenes in our own lives, but we are assured through this that God is intricately involved in every aspect of our life. The ordinary, mundane, whatever. It's not just the big moments. Yeah. So, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, on verses 15 to 17?
Well, mine says, the Lord said, anoint him leader, not king.
Mm-hmm.
So
And which,
mine's in verse 16.
in verse 16, and mine says prince.
Yeah,
Mine says ruler.
so I'm not going to use the word king because
Well,
he
because
doesn't
he's
want them
king.
to have a king.
He's still truly king.
Yeah, true.
He doesn't want them to have a king. He's going to give them the ruler that they
Yes.
are asking for. Yeah.
So he has him anoint him, but not in the way that David is anointed through God.
That's a good
So
question.
he's having Saul anoint him, but not. but
David's
differently.
anointed too, though.
Right,
I wonder if that title
but
had
God
something.
specifically
Right.
chose David, right? I mean,
For what?
to be the king. I mean, God had his hand on that king,
Mhm.
correct? Versus, what's the difference then?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Saul, my thought about it is Saul is the people's choice. He fits the bill of exactly what you would be looking for in a warrior king leader. He is tall, dark, and handsome. He is strong. He's going to lead an army into battle, all of those things. But spiritually, he's a mess. He makes tons of foolish choices. And it's literally within the first, I think, maybe the first or second foolish thing that he does, that Samuel goes, your kingdom isn't going to last forever. God's already choosing another one to come up after you, and that's David. And Saul just got started. So, I don't know.
He's still anointed, it's still the man God chose.
Yes, it is. It's still the man God
Not as
chose.
good as David, but
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like God is saying, okay, I'll give you what you want. I am
Right.
anointing him. I
Yeah.
am giving you this leader,
Right.
but it's what you want. And then David is more of like, now here's a king after my own heart.
Mhm.
Here's a godly king.
And I'm going to
And I'm-
establish my
yes.
house through him forever. Yes. Yeah.
Almost like, all right, there are two kings, but here's the difference of what you chose and then what I chose.
And both made bad choices.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clearly, David made some
I mean,
horrible
both are
choices.
not God.
No, and both aren't Jesus either.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. I don't know if I know you're asking about the difference between, like, the wording, right? Anointed as prince or ruler or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yes,
I don't know what the importance of that is yet.
okay.
I'd have to look more into that. Let's see, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. Okay, so even though God is giving Israel over to their desires here for a ruler, a king, and he's allowing them to reject him, because remember, free will, we still have free will. God mercifully didn't allow Israel to appoint their own king. He chose Saul, like you said, Marilee. But I think that he specifically chose him to show, like, this is what you would want, and this is what you would be, this is what you're okay with, and here's how it's gonna turn out, kind of a thing. Also, notice God's reason for appointing Saul. He says he's gonna deliver my people from the hand of the Philistines. The people reject God as their king by demanding this, an Israelite, like a human, flesh and bone kind of king, and God's responding in a merciful way, actually. He's saying, okay, I will give you someone. And Saul does lead an army into battle, and he does take care of a lot of Philistine oppression. They get a lot of towns back from Philistine rule. He mercifully appoints someone to deliver Israel from her enemies. That is a true mercy right there. And I think it's a foreshadowing of God's mercy on all people, because really Israel rejected him as king, Jesus as king, and he responds by sending his son to deliver the whole world. I think that's kind of a small taste. This is a small taste of God's goodness and how he reacts to our rejection and how he reacts to our foolishness. And so let's just keep going. Verse 18. Then Saul approached Samuel in the gate and said, please tell me where the seer's house is. Samuel answered Saul and said, I am the seer. Go up before me to the high place, for you shall eat with me today. And in the morning I will let you go and will tell you all that is on your mind. And as for your donkeys, which were lost 3 days ago, do not set your mind on them, for they have been found. And for whom is all that is desirable in Israel? Is it not for you and for all your father's household? And Saul replied, am I not a Benjamite, of the smallest of the tribe of Israel? And my family, the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Why then do you speak to me in this way? And then Samuel took Saul and his servant and brought them into the hall and gave them a place at the head of those who were invited, who were about 30 men. And Samuel said to the cook, bring the portion that I gave you, concerning which I said to you, set it aside. And then the cook took up the leg with what was on it and set it before Saul. And Samuel said, here is what has been reserved. Set it before you and eat, because it has been kept for you until the appointed time, since I said I have invited the people. And so Saul ate with Samuel that day. And when they came down from the high place into the city, Samuel spoke with Saul on the roof. And they arose early, and at daybreak Samuel called to Saul on the roof, saying, get up, that I may send you away. And so Saul arose, and both he and Samuel went out into the street. And as they were going down to the edge of the city, Samuel said to Saul, say to the servant that he might go ahead of us and pass on, but you remain standing now, that I may proclaim the word of God to you. Okay. A lot happens here. Notice Samuel's first, this whole, rest of the chapter. Samuel doesn't say a word about Saul being appointed as king. He hasn't said a word about it yet. That's not even the first thing he says. First thing he says is, want to get something to eat? Then he actually answers Saul's question about the donkey without Saul ever asking it, which I think is really cool. And so Saul, he's only asked this old man, he didn't even know he was Samuel. He just said, do you know where the seer's house is? And then he gets, I'm the seer, and by the way, the donkeys, they're fine.
But he didn't tell him where they were.
No, he just says they've been found. They've been
Yeah.
found. Yeah. Saul's like, but where were they? I looked everywhere. But that certainly had to have Saul's attention with that remark, for sure. And then Samuel adds, and for whom is all that is desirable in Israel? Is it not for you and for all your father's household? Does anybody have a different translation for that? Probably all similar-ish, right? Okay. Basically what he means is, I know your focus is on the donkeys, but the donkeys are nothing compared to what lies ahead for you and your family. He's soon to possess all that is desirable in Israel. And so it's almost like this clue, but not right out, full out saying it almost. And so Saul's response in verse 21 is actually modest and humble, because he was truthfully from the smallest of the tribes of Israel. Benjamin's the smallest tribe. Their numbers actually went down to 600 due to their wickedness. That's small for a tribe of Israel. I don't know where they were at in Saul's day, but they were the smallest tribe. However, he was not from the least of the families in the tribe of Benjamin. But it was still a very modest response to it. And then verse 22 to 24, Saul and Samuel are at the feast, and Saul is honored in a couple of ways. First, he's given a seat of honor at the head of all those who were invited. That would have been traditionally at like the right hand of the host, which would have been Samuel. Now remember, this was kind of like the peace offering that Hannah and Elkanah did, where they would go, they'd make their sacrifice, and then they would share the meat from the sacrifice as a feast. That's what's happening here at the high place. The high place is just like probably truly a high place, a mountain-ish type location. The higher you are, the closer to God kind of thing. And they would have a sacrifice there, and then they would have a feast there. And that's exactly how that would look. And then it talks about how Samuel has a special portion that's set aside for Saul. This was customarily done. I don't know if he knew that it was going to be for Saul, because customarily at any of these feasts, there would be a special portion that's set aside for whoever the host wants to honor. And in this case, it's Saul. And so he's given a special extra portion of the meal. And so this would have been a big deal. The people would have been talking about it. That there's who is this guy that Samuel has placed at the seat of honor and given the special portion? It would have been the talk of the town. And so then it says that Samuel and Saul spoke, looks like all night long. And then they rose early the next morning and they're ready to go. And Samuel says, "Let your servant go ahead, but we have some things to discuss." So that's where we kind of end off for this chapter until we get into the next couple of chapters. And I think is what we'll do the next time we meet. At least just read 10 and 11. You got 2 weeks to do it, so I think you'll be okay. Any thoughts on chapter 9?
So it sounds like where it ends, Saul doesn't know he's king,
He still has not actually received that word.
even though the verse she pointed out where he's told to anoint him. You don't think that happened right then?
No.
Okay.
In verse 15 to 17, that's a private moment between, 15 and 16. That's a private moment between God and Samuel. And then in 17, when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said to Samuel,
Oh, right.
"Behold, this is the one that I told you about." So, at this point, Saul still hasn't heard anything about it. Although the best he's gotten is a clue. That where it says,
Well, he
And-
knows he's being honored in some way, just
yes,
because of where he's sitting.
yes, he knows he's being honored. Samuel has said, all of Israel is going to be looking at you, essentially. You're going to be,
Right.
It's
something.
gotta be like, we're not looking for donkeys and here I am getting honored.
Yeah.
Because there's
Now-
no king, it's not like, oh, I could be the next king.
Right,
Right,
right.
right. Now, maybe he heard about the people's request for a king. I don't know. We don't know. We're not given that information. And where it says that on verse 25, Samuel spoke with Saul on the roof of the place that they were at, we don't know what they talked about. So, I don't know.
Do we know what they sacrificed? I mean, when they say that he got the leg, all I can see is this enormous leg coming down. Not a chicken leg.
I don't know. I'd have to look and see. I could probably find in Exodus or something like that what was typical for a peace offering, but that's not guaranteed that that's actually what they're doing here.
Probably
Because
dinosaur leg.
That's what I think. Donkey.
Dinosaur.
oh, it was the donkeys. That's where the donkeys were.
They were found.
They were found, and then he ate them.
Didn't say what happened after they were found.
No, it didn't. That's funny.
Oh, you never know what's gonna come out of your guys' mouth. That's funny.
We just fill in the details that aren't given.
Right.
Yes,
We just make up our own.
in the most creative ways.
I'm teaching my kids, if you can believe it or not, inferencing. We're just inferencing. Teaching 5-year-olds how to inference.
Are they really?
Yes.
Wow.
That's what my book says.
Okay. That's a big word for a
It is a
5-year-old.
big word. When you think about it though, it's not that hard of a concept.
No.
Like, I put a poster up with no words and we're like, what do you think is happening?
Right.
So,
Right.
we make inferences all the
There's
time.
something on the poster,
Just a picture, no
not a
words.
blank piece of paper.
No, that would
Just a blank board.
be, that would be using your imagination.
Difference, there's a difference.
We're just inferencing.
Well, it's kind of like using like deduction. You're deducing what's
What's happening, yep.
That's funny. Yeah. Molly, do you want to pray for us tonight? Sure.
God, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for our discussion, just helping us think through how we are like the Israelites, whether we like it or not, and just how we often do not choose you, and our pride and our selfishness get in that way. And so I just pray that you would help us think about that this week, and that we could just be more mindful of the ways that we're choosing the world or our desires, and that we would just be reminded to be patient and wait and hold to your truth. Just thank you just for our time together, and just for the up and coming holidays and traveling and time with family. Just that we would still be thinking about you and present. And just bring all these to you in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.